Welcome back, casual gardeners. Today is the first day of spring. As you can see, there's a lot of snow. Not a lot we can do in the garden today. Luckily, my dear coworker asked me about crop rotation. Let's go into the greenhouse where it's warm and talk about rotating crops. It's hovering around freezing outside. The temperature here in the greenhouse is currently about 60 degrees, which is much more comfortable. So first of all, what do I mean when I'm talking about crop rotation? It's any practice where you change what is growing in a field or a garden plot from year to year, typically with the intention of improving your yield overall or controlling pests. Crop rotation has actually a much longer history than I expected it to have when I started researching the topic. It goes back at least 8,000 years. Crop rotation might be almost as old as agriculture. So crop rotation started in the Near Middle East, and it spread east into Asia, and it spread ultimately west into Europe from there. So we do find records of crop rotation both in ancient China and in the Roman Empire. There were two basic ways people were doing it back in the olden days. So that was the two-field method and the three-field method. So the two-field method is the oldest method, and that is just growing your grains one year and allowing the field to lie fallow the following year. And of course, once the field has lain fallow, then you let your livestock kind of mow through that goodness and drop a lot of manure onto the soil. It churns things up, it adds some nutrients back into the soil, and you're ready to grow your grains again. The three-field method, which was also practiced in China through Europe, all over the place: food, feed, and fallow, the three F's. So you'd grow a food crop, then you would grow a crop that maybe you didn't necessarily want to eat, but you could feed to your livestock, and then you would fallow the land. So good examples of feed would be oats or legumes after your cereal crop, and then fallow is just whatever self-seeds in the area. So historically, crop rotation focused more on adding nutrients back into the soil than it did on controlling pests and diseases. We did have pesticide use that dates back 2,000 or 3,000 years, and it was some pretty awful stuff sometimes, like throwing arsenic all over your crops. But mostly what we were up to is just improving fertility and hoping the gods favored us with a good harvest. Before we go any further in this video, I want you to just stop and hit the like button. You can change your mind later, but it'll help me out if you just like it right now. So intensive farming is when you figure out what your cash crop is and you just hit it year after year in the same place. And you're able to do that now because we have industrial fertilizer. We can either make compost on a massive scale if we're doing organic farming, or if we're not doing organic farming, we've got mineral fertilizers that we're able to produce at a massive scale and just throw all over the place and just keep hitting that plot with crops. Crop rotation does offer some benefits over that, and there is currently a movement in shifting intensive farming over to a more rotation-esque kind of vibe. Hopefully there will be some progress there, but if there's not, please don't be mad at your farmers. They are risking their lives and livelihood every year so that we can eat affordable food, all right? So one of the benefits of rotating crops, even though we have mastered fertilizer now in what we call the Green Revolution, is that you can improve your soil over time. Intensive farming tends to be accompanied by a degradation of soil. We see soil loss, we see a breakdown in soil structure, and the soil just gets worse and worse over time, so you got to use more and more fertilizer. If you use a more of a rotation system, you can improve soil structure by incorporating more organic matter into your soil over time. And another benefit is that you are improving biodiversity in the soil. Biodiverse soil is going to harbor more pests, but it's also going to harbor more predators, and they are going to tend to fluctuate in concert with one another. You may wind up being able to use fewer pesticides overall if you've just address that soil health piece. Farmers tend to be very conservative when it comes to new techniques and very risk averse. One way we might improve that is by offering farmers more protection. If they're willing to try new things, that's probably not something we'll see for the next few years. You're a gardener, not a farmer. We're not seeing similarities of scale, and because our scale when we're gardening is a lot smaller, the benefits from crop rotation can be a lot different. I think that crop rotation should be a tool that is in your toolkit. It's something you need to know about so that you can use it when you see clear benefit to using it. I don't think that it's as essential as some gardening gurus say it is. I think that as small gardeners, we have enough variation in our inputs from year to year and enough variety in our plantings that we can get some of the benefits from crop rotation without explicitly rotating our crops. So an example from my personal life is disease control. So last year, my zucchini crop was just brutally attacked by powdery mildew. It was so bad that when I finally pulled my plants out, it was just a big, absolute poof of, it looked like billowing smoke, but it was spores from the powdery mildew that had built up on the leaves of my zucchini plants. Despite the powdery mildew, I got a really great harvest from those zucchini plants that year. But looking forward, I realized that if I put something else that's susceptible to that powdery mildew in the same spot, it's probably going to have a worse year next year. So instead, I decided to plant a different family of vegetables in that spot. So this year, I'm growing garlic in that whole bed. Garlic does get impacted by powdery mildews, but it's a different species of powdery mildew. And so the powdery mildew that's already there isn't necessarily going to bother it. So by changing families in that plot, I'm breaking the powdery mildew cycle in that plot, and I'm more likely to have a good harvest from that plot this year. Now, pests can also be crop specific, so it can be beneficial to rotate crops if you're dealing with a crop specific pest that isn't terribly mobile in some part of its life cycle. So another example from my personal life was in my old garden. I had terrible, terrible leaf miner infestations. It was impossible for me to grow spinach or beets in my garden. This was the variety of leaf miners that is a fly in its adult life stage. So that was literal maggots crawling around in the leaves of my crops. It was gross. The life cycle of a leaf miner is that the larvae will drop out of the leaves into the soil when they're more mature. That's my fan system kicking on. It got sunny. So the larvae drop out of the leaves into the soil when they are more mature, and then they will pupate in the soil and emerge the following year to be an issue in your garden again, and that sucks. So what I did is I planted all of my spinach and beets in a bed that had not had leaf miners in it the previous year, and then I covered them in insect netting so that the adults couldn't get to my crops. And because I knew that that soil was clean of larvae, when the larvae in the other plot hatched the following year, they could not attack my crops. And I was able to eat spinach and beets without nearly the amount of heartache that I had the previous year. You can do an even more complicated crop rotation today. And that is the 4-year rotation. And basically what you're doing is you're planting a different crop in each plot so that you do not get the same family of vegetables growing in a plot for at least 3 years. So on the 4th year, you can rotate back around. So the various families are, you got the carrot family, you got the onion family, you've got the mustard family, which includes the cabbages. You've got the goosefoot family, which includes beets. The gourd family, which includes melons, and the pea family includes peas. That's all the legumes, and the nightshade family, that's your tomatoes and your potatoes and stuff. Crop rotation is not always necessary. Like especially growing in raised beds, or if you're doing the square foot method of gardening, things tend to get mixed around a lot. That means it's kind of a little bit more impossible to rotate crops when we need to, but also it means it's going to be less generally necessary to rotate the crops because we have a diverse ecosystem that we're creating there instead of monocultures. And diverse ecosystems tend to be naturally more pest resistant and disease resistant. I would say do know about crop rotation. Do be ready to do crop rotation if it becomes necessary or if it will help you. You can be a better gardener if you know about it, but you're not a bad gardener if you don't use it. Before you go, make sure that you have liked this video, subscribe to my channel, and I've got a thing. I got a thing I need to show you. I think it's kind of cool. What is it? Bah! I did an art. It's a little rad. It's a radish. It's a dad joke. So you can find my radish art on my store merch, and also it is an emote that channel members can use. So if you think something is a little rad, there's your emote. All right, now you know everything I know about crop rotation, which is probably more than most of you wanted to know. Let me know down in the comments if you have a favorite rotation cycle that you will do in your garden. Thank you so much for joining me here in my garden today. I hope you have a wonderful time in your own.